Hello and welcome to today's video. This time we'll be cleaning up my Penguin English Library paperbacks. I believe this started in the early 1960s and we go right through to the early ISBN period. So sit back, relax and let's get to it. Okay, so a lot of these books are what we would now regard as black classics in Penguin, but before they were black classics, they were published as the Penguin English Library, and they very much look like classics, but they don't have that distinctive black spine. Now, some of mine, I've got them right back to English Library number 1, which we'll no doubt come across, but the collection does spill over into having ISBN. So this particular one, for example, let's have a little look when it was published. 1976. So the collection that I've gotten from me, they're not in order by any means, but they are just here, well, for us to go through. And that one is actually pretty nice. So once again, they've got the telltale date and place of purchase by the original owner. So that was a chap called Alan Swale. And you may remember I bought his collection last year. I didn't quite buy it all, but I bought an awful lot of it, which was fantastic. But at the same time, some of these like minor series, like the English Library, have been awaiting for me to get round to them. And on the whole, you know, I don't think we're going to have masses of work to do, but until I really get through them, I'm not sure for certain. This is Villette, and you're going to see lots of familiar names today. And in a lot of cases, these books were the first time that these particular books were actually published as Penguins. Not all of them. Some of them were, you know, had been published before, but most of them were brand new to Penguin when they decided to do their edition of it. So consequently, they are Penguin first. And the Penguin English Library no longer exists. Obviously, we've just got Penguin Classics now, haven't we? And Modern Classics. But this was like a sub-series, and there's some great titles in here. That is for absolutely certain. So I shall look forward to going through it. Now this one, look at the condition of it. It's obviously been read, and it's got on the spine there EL 100, English Library number 100. But ordinarily, because this is low grade and most of these books are in tip-top shape, I mean, look at it. For me, unfortunately, that is too far gone. I'm not even going to bother to clean that one. I don't think anyone's ever going to want to buy it. Even though it's Melville, who I obviously really like because he wrote Moby Dick. But that particular one, for me, is too far gone. And there's a couple in here a bit like that. But most of them, I'm happy to report, are in excellent condition. So this is English Library number 12, The Way of All Flesh. I'm pretty sure this was a Penguin before it was an English Library. It may well say, of course. No, it doesn't say at all if it was previously published by Penguin. Just says first published 1903. The Way of All Flesh. See, a bit more of an earlier one, this. And I think the Penguin English Library was certainly regarded, I think by Penguin themselves, they certainly marketed it as a sort of a highbrow sort of a list, you know, which is fair enough. Certainly the titles in it are, you know, what we would now consider as sort of upper brow classics in a lot of cases. Nothing wrong with that, though. The classics that I have read, I've realised that they are classics for a reason, because they are so good. Now, that particular one I'm going to leave out because I'm going to give it a bit of polish. I'm going to put that to one side. I'm certainly not going to be polishing them all. Obviously, they're all going to need a brush. But some of them, if they're a little bit grubby, I am going to put them to one side for polishing. Jane Eyre. And this is English Library 11. That looks like it had some tape on it, which is apparently fallen off. So again, this is 1966. So it may just be that these slightly older books are the ones that are going to need a bit of a polish, possibly. There won't be many, though, I don't think. I said, although I've got 4.5 piles of books next to me here, I don't think they're going to take that long, because sometimes some of these piles are a little bit of glue need there. Some of these piles are actually only got like 20 books in. Now, I haven't used the glue for ages, so not sure how easily it's going to come out. I have got some new glue. Oh, here we are. Yeah, that's enough. I've got some new glue on standby, this stuff. I am going to give it another try, because I think overall it's actually been really good glue. There we are. You know, it's actually really done the trick well. So I'm not complaining. Oh, and that one I'm going to give a polish to as well. And this is nice. Look, American Notes, Charles Dickens. This one appears to be unread. So you do find with classics that sometimes people buy them with the best of intentions and then subsequently never get around to actually reading them. I guess it's just the way of classics, isn't it? Something else better comes along, or they're not quite prepared to put the time in to get into a book. I find Charles Dickens in particular, I think out of all the authors that you could sort of say are classics authors who, you know, where their works were written a long time ago, Dickens for me is the most accessible. I think he's fantastic. I really do. When you look behind his life, when he was writing particular books, you realise just how good they are. And I also like the form that a lot of his, you know, sort of epic stuff was released like almost like a chapter a month rather. And consequently, they do read like a serial. It's fantastic. Now that one it's just perfect, isn't it? Isn't that Pride and Prejudice? Now this definitely was published by Penguin before, but it doesn't mention it. Yeah, see, Pride and Prejudice was the very first Penguin illustrated classic. It was the very first classic they ever did, but it's not even mentioned there. They only did 12 books, and then the series folded. 3 Elizabethan domestic tragedies. This is English Library 39. This one's got a bit of staining on, but basically it's a robust, once again, probably unread copy. So I recognise that. That's actually the annotation of Penguin book dealer Brian Kesterton. Brian was a lovely, lovely chap. I met him just the once in the 90s, and we used to have really long chats. And he produced a regular Penguin catalogue. And I know for a fact Alan did buy a few bits and pieces from him. I'll give that one a little polish as well. Now this is another one, sadly, when I saw it I thought, no, it's just too far gone for me to have in my collection. I don't really have room for like these lower grade books. So that once again is going to go on the side, and I'll just wait for a better one to come along, because they are most definitely out there in most cases. Certainly they do appear on dealers' catalogues, these books, for just, you know, a few pounds each, which is great, I think. People aren't so fussed about these English library. They're much more concerned with the traditional black classics and Penguin modern classics. Far more sought after. The original classics in particular. I haven't got any left, and I had quite a pile of doubles, and they've all gone. Because they're such great editions, aren't they? You know, they really are. Now, I did notice, just flicking through there, it's got some notes on the inside front cover. Can't do anything about that, but I did notice a few little bits of text highlighted there. That's the sort of thing you get because someone's evidently studied that particular book for whatever reason. So the Christmas books, Charles Dickens, Volume 2. That seems in lovely condition. That's very, very nice. Once again, that's never been read, that one. It's like it's almost been bought brand new. The Moonstone, English Library 14. Yeah, so as I said, even though we've got a lot of piles of books, there's not that many titles. There's possibly, I don't know, about 80 books here, something like that. So I'm hoping that we can get them all done in one video. I have also brought out, I had just a handful of these before I bought this collection. And when I say a handful, I had like 4. So there will be possibly 4 doubles, which we'll see. But that's nice. That's all right. Once again, because it's one of the older ones, I'm going to just pop the polish over it. Persuasion. I have got in my collection a launch booklet for the English library. So this one's got some water damage at the top there, but apart from that, he's generally okay. Once again, I'll give it a little polish because it's got that little bit on the back there. Coney catchers and baldy baskets. Don't know this. What's this about? The world of patriarchs, pilliards, and bridgers of prancers, autumn morts and walking morts. I see. It's an anthology. An anthology of Elizabethan lowlife. What can you say? It is pretty much mint, that. Not a mark on it. Anthony Trollope. Phineas Finn. Not Phineas Fogg. Yeah, a little bit of aging and staining, but once again, still unread. And that's how we want these books. I'm absolutely happy to have some missing because, as I said, they do turn up on catalogues now and again or online, so I'm not too fussed. This is another one which he's a bit borderline, I'm afraid, because he's so worn compared to most of this series. I am reluctant, it's really borderline this, to actually have in the collection at all. And it's an ISBN one. I'm not going to be fussed about that because I certainly won't be collecting ISBN books, but the ones that I've got in the collection I shall keep. Like this one, for example, Northanger Abbey, another classic. Great stuff, Jane Austen. Martin Chuzzlewit, this is another one. It's an early one though, English Library 31. This is probably the first ever time Martin Chuzzlewit was put into Penguin. In fact, I'm sure it was. Yeah, it's a bit of a tatty old copy, this one. Yeah, 1968. It's just that for me, that's not really a collectible copy with all the creasing and stuff. It's basically a reader. So I know who'll be getting all of these. It'll be my mother. She loves the classics. David Copperfield. So this is good stuff. Now I suspect, that's funny, that says English Library 8. So is this a reprint? Surely not. Yeah, published in Penguin Books 1966, reprinted in 1974. So this is actually a reprint, which is very, very unusual because Alan never used to collect reprints. All I can think of is he had this one picked up as one to read, possibly, you know. But it's a nice copy, so I'm not going to get rid of this one by any means. But I will put it in my ones that I'm not going to be including as part of the main collection because it's not a first print. Another tatty one, look at this, Our Mutual Friend, English Library 60. And once again, I suspect this is another reprint. Yes, it is. So once again, not really worth spending any time on that one. This one, however, is rather lovely. 4 Jacobean City Comedies. English Library 101. Not Room 101. Yeah, see, that's a first from 1975. That's all right. Let's slide them there. Another one that seems virtually unread. History of England. Obviously ISBN. Yeah, see, this is bought brand new, you know, because it says it was bought 25th of the 12th, so Christmas Day, 1979, probably given as a present, and it was published in 1979. So there you go. There we go. Yeah, that's lovely, that. Absolute minters. Thomas Love Peacock. English Library 45. Another real minter, by the look of it. And that's why, you know, if you keep the collection consistently nice, you know, you don't want lower grade ones to sort of impact on it. So I'd rather not have them at all. It's got a little 10p on the top here. That's for Robinson Crusoe, which is a great book, isn't it? It's probably one of the earliest classics I ever read. I don't know if I read like the full-on adult edition, or if I may have read like a watered-down children's abridgment, possibly, but very, very nice for that. Doesn't even need a polish, that one. It's really, really lovely. Wuthering Heights, another great one. Look, English Library #1. So let's have a look. Is it a first print of the first English library? And it is, yeah. So 1965. So now we've got an accurate launch date for these. I knew it was in the 60s. I just couldn't remember when. A little name in the back here, or date rather. There we are. Yeah, lovely. Nice copy of the first one. Now this one's got some of the dreaded sellotape on, which was one of the little hallmarks of Alan's collection, is that occasionally he would put just a little bit of tape on if the spine was starting to come away. Yeah, so he put that bit of tape on because that little fleck there was just coming away. Whereas now we will just do it with a bit of glue. Like so. There we are. Lovely. Yeah, nice easy fix. A tour through the whole of Great Britain. Look at that. What a beautiful copy. Once again, it's I would class that as new. Never been read. A minter, you could say. Selected writings. This one's very nice, but also got some tape on the bottom. There we are, and that's because, once again, that tiny little bit at the bottom of the spine has just been caught. And a bit of tactical glue in will pop it back into place. There we are, perfect. The Egoist, English Library 34. I'm actually struggling for room a little bit, so I'm going to slide that over there. We'll get this one done, and then I'm going to just clear the decks a bit. I'm going to readjust the camera ever so slightly. 20p inside. Lovely that. Interesting with the black there. It's almost a classic, isn't it? But then it's got a traditional sort of orange spine. Okay, cracking on with Samuel Johnson, English Library 33. Selected writings. There we are. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Lovely. Right, Silas Marner. This is a classic, isn't it? Now, he is a bit worn, this one. So how bad is it? Oh, look. It's an ex-school book by the look of it. Yeah, it's got stamps. It's an ex-school library from the English department. Yeah. He's a bit too far gone, that one for me. So that'll be one for my mother. Another Melville, Billy Budd Sailor. And this one's borderline, but I think he's going to be okay. I think he's going to be all right, that one. Billy Budd. This is one I've not read. Looks like it's, you know, his shorter works by the look of it. Oh, we're writing at the top, but it's in pens, so we're not able to get a shot of that, sadly. It's got a previous owner's sticker in the front, but you know, very neat. So I'm not too worried about that. 1967. That's a first. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that one before. It's really nice. Really nice. Okay, we've got 3 piles left to do. I reckon we can get them all done in a day, so that'll be okay. North America. This one looks a nice copy. I said there's probably only 1 or 2 others which are really low grade, glancing over at the shelves, but we'll see. There we are. That's very nice indeed. Make sure I pop it on the right pile. Christopher Marlowe, The Complete Plays. That's got a very faint 20p on his forehead. Well, we don't want that, do we? And a little 25 on the inside front cover, which is the worst possible place. Okay, that's all right. Cool, look at this, a huge one, Nicholas Nickleby. Massive tome. we don't let that put us off. I don't think you should ever be scared of big books, reading them. Talking about the aforementioned Moby Dick. Just think of them as like lots of short books put together. Old Morality, Sir Walter Scott. There we are, a little bit of foxing inside, but very, very minuscule. John Milton, Selected Prose. Also got a 25p on the front cover. I mean, nowadays, I don't think anyone, even in the second-hand shops or charity shops, would ever think to put a price like that, just written in pencil, thankfully, right on the front jacket. You'd think it would always just be on the inside, wouldn't you? They have put it on the inside front cover as well. And also where it was originally purchased. So basically this had the full-on trifecta. All it was missing was the original owner's name. Well, we know who that was, so... Yeah, another one that's got a tiny bit of water damage at some point in its life. Selected Prose, Matthew Arnold. And that is absolute mint, it's perfection. Gaskell, Wives and Daughters. This one's got a couple of read increases, but not enough to warrant it being a reject. Or 40p in the top there. There we are, it's about as good as we're going to get that one. Here it is, the aforementioned Moby Dick. This is the first ever Penguin printing of this one. Had this one out for a video I did on the main channel fairly recently, where I go through how to read Moby Dick for maximum enjoyment. And it is a great book. I just see there's a couple of little marks on the spine, so I've just moved that into the to be polished pile there. Barnaby Rudge. Now, this is one I've not read of Dickens ever, but I've heard it's good. So this one's on the short list of ones to be read by him. I have got a set of Dickens which came out in about 1880, the uniform, and they've got the original illustrations as well, which I particularly wanted. And each hardback has got 2 books in. And they have really, really nice editions. Not too big, not too small. They're just right. And I got a really nice sort of uniform set. Not uncommon to find sets of Dickens. See, it's got some of the original illustrations. You probably would have had one per part. As I said, Dickens, they were all done as, in effect, part works, like a modern day or a vintage version of a part work. Records of Shelley, Byron and the Author. Another one which looks in unread condition. But you can understand when I've got books in this beautiful condition that I don't want to lower the collection, even if it's one that I haven't got, with one that's really low grade. I'd rather just stick to having these in tip-top shape and waiting for nice ones to come along. That's why I've got a wants list, you know. Lovely. As I said, I've never ever chased them down. The few that I had in my collection to begin with were just the few odd ones that had come my way. Being a Penguin collector, I've never gone out my way to fill in the gaps. But the next like big comprehensive dealers list that comes along, they've generally got full sets of them, and I'll just grab the ones I'm missing. There we are. Okay, that's all right. Now, these next two are Penguin Popular Classics. They were part of the collection. I've saved them because I actually remember selling these Penguin Popular Classics, and they were all out of copyright, and Penguin knocked them out for £1 a book. And I remember at the time I bought quite a few of them. I've got a couple in my collection that I saved. They're notorious for the spines fading. So these two that I've got here are actually quite nice. And I think what it was because there was another publisher, somebody like Wordsworth possibly, and they'd introduced a range of £1 classics, cheaply produced. And this was Penguin's response to them. And I got to admit, I was in the book trade when these were being sold in 1992. I joined Dillon's as a bookseller, and these came out in that first year, I believe. Let's have a look here. 1994, so it's a couple of years after I joined Dillon's. And I remember building up huge tables. They had like the Dillon's I worked in. Now that needs a polish. The Dillon's I worked in was the biggest bookshop in the southwest, and they had 20 of every one come in. I think it was about 20 initially, and they sold out within a couple of days, if you can believe it. So they then ordered a follow-up order of 100 of each, and they took a little bit longer to sell, as you might expect. But I remember people buying armloads of them because they had the distinctive Penguin look, something a little bit different, as you can see, you know, the popular classics. As I said, although interestingly these aren't priced, they were all £1. Now this one's unfortunately had something splattered on it, so I'm going to dig off what I can with my fingernail, and then I'll run the polish over it in a bit, and we'll see if we can get the rest of it off. As I said, I'm not actively collecting these, but they do have they do hold some memories for me, and they don't turn up very often in nice condition. As I said, I've only got a couple that I saved from back in the day. I wish I'd saved them all, but I just didn't have the room at one point, so I got rid of them. Right, so I put that in the to be polished pile, both of those. But I remember, like, you could get War and Peace for £1. It was an absolute steal, you know. Women in Love. This is definitely not the first time this was published, because it was a late 40s, I believe. Penguin did it in the late 40s, early 50s. Yeah, see, published in Penguin English Library 1982. They don't actually mention the first time it was printed in Penguin. Now, as I'm filming this, that's a lovely copy there. Penguin have just released, or just published, their books for their 90th anniversary. That is lovely, isn't it? Look at that. Shame it's not a minter, but it's still very, very nice. Yeah, that is lovely, isn't it? Yeah, Penguin have just published their 90 books for Penguin's 90th year, which their birthday is in July 1935. And one of the books, I've ordered 5 or 6 of my favourites out of the 90, and I've actually dropped Penguin a note to say, can they send me any more for review? Because I'm going to do a review of them, whatever. But they tend not to be very responsive to people on social media, so I'm not expecting to get any in the post. But you never know. I've asked. But one of the books I've ordered is The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, and each of these new Penguin 90ths, it says first published by Penguin, and then it gives you the year. So for the Time Machine, they've got first published as a Penguin in 1939, and that is not right. So the date is wrong on it. So I don't know where they've got that date from. So I may need to let them know. But that is an absolute beauty. Really like that one. Okay, so I think my camera actually reset itself there. So we'll go along. And I was just on Little Dorrit here before I noticed the camera had switched itself off. What I was saying was a big, huge book like this, hundreds of pages. But if you have a look, the book doesn't start till page 39. So you've got, an introduction, an editor's forward, and a little piece on Charles Dickens himself before you even get to tucking into the book. And that's really good because it sort of puts you in the right time and place for Dickens when he was actually writing this book, Now look at that. That is a great one, isn't it? Look at that. Journal of the Plague Year. English Library number 15. That is very nice indeed, that, isn't it? Look at that, 1966. What a beauty. That's lovely, that. Nice period piece. Got that 60s Penguin vibe about it. Yeah, so you may have missed 1 or 2 books there, but nothing to worry about. I am going to do a proper overview of the Penguin English Library on the main channel. I'll probably be 2 or 3 weeks after you see this video. And then these are going to have to go into storage until my library until I move house, basically, and my library's built. So, Persuasion, English Library number 5. I don't want to be putting all this extra weight into the loft. I'm trying to empty the loft, not fill it up. So, yeah, these are going to be stored at a friend's house. Bit of writing inside, which spoils it a little bit. But apart from that, he's absolutely fine. I don't mind that. Great Expectations, number 3. This one has been read by the looks of it, but that's okay. What a fascinating guy he must have been, old Dickens, eh? So hard working as well, he never really stopped. Never stopped. Still a little bit of pencil there. There we are. Lovely. English Library number 3. Mary Barton. God, this book's really heavy. It's funny, sometimes you pick up a book that doesn't seem that big, but because the page quality or the page thickness on this one is quite thin, it's packed a lot of pages into a small book. So this is almost 500 pages, but it doesn't look it, does it? And that's why it's like deceptively heavy. Right, the next one, once again, was a Penguin Illustrated classic, initially, TP, all the way back in 1937. Any mention of it in the history here? Nope, none at all. But this was a Penguin very, very early on. It was an Illustrated classic, and it was a very good one as well, with like wood engravings by a chap called Robert Gibbons. Nice copy of that one. That's good. Pilgrim's Progress. See, this was the one that was used, I seem to recall, on a lot of the advertising for this particular series. They used this cover. There we are. Yeah, he's all right. I'll pop that in the to be polished pile. David Copperfield. So this is borderline on first look. It's a huge book. Just slightly coming away on the spine. We can reglue it. We'll be all right. Let's just clean it first of all. It's just a little bit grubby, this one. Picked up in Leeds. Right, so we just want to really squidge some glue down there, don't we? And the bottom of the spine, like that. That's all we really want to do on this. So let's see how easy that's going to be. Let's get it flowing first of all. A good old squidge is what we need. Come on, don't dry up on me now. Been behaving all day, hasn't it? Is he going to do it? No. Right, I've gone in with the old poker to free up the end here, and that's done the trick. So now we're going to need to squish that around a little bit, and I hope that it sticks in place. Yeah, it's a little bit coming out the bottom, which is good. It means we've squished it down. There we are. That's okay. And I will pop that in the to be polished pile. Right, North and South, Elizabeth Gaskell. Picked up 1st of November 1978 in Harrogate. Okay. Lovely copy of that one. And then Emma, another absolute classic. She is still very, very popular, and although the only one I ever read was Persuasion, the style of writing, I can see why she is so popular. Yeah, that's okay. He's all right. Now this one's got a very faded spine, which I'm not a fan of. But let's see how it is inside. Huge book. Yeah, there's no other markings. It is a first. So it will go on an upgrade list as one I'd like to get a better copy of. But ultimately, apart from the faded spine, it's unbroken. It's not too bad a copy, so I'll keep it, at least for now. I'm going to mull it over. Thackeray, The History of Henry Esmond. Now, you remember last week we sorted through the Guild Services editions. I'm going to go back to those next week, and I'm going to amalgamate my existing copies in, because it was basically just sorting out what we had to begin with, and then we're going to slowly but surely start working our way through and cleaning them up. It's not going to be a quick job though, I don't think, because you remember the condition of some of them, they were really low grade, but that's fine. So I'm going to pull down my existing Guild books to put with it, and we'll get a definitive look, like clean and look through. But that's next week. That's a lovely copy. That's absolutely fine. Last Chronicle of Barset, another big book, also quite worn. It's another one that's on the borderline, I'm afraid to say. As I said earlier on, the bigger the book, the harder they are to find in nice condition. This one's got a Brian Kesterton saying it was VG, £2.50. I wouldn't have described this one as VG, to be honest. Personally speaking, I mean, it is there. It's very, very borderline. But because it's one of the numbered ones and not ISBN, I am going to keep it. Yeah, I will keep that, although he's not great. Emma. Absolutely perfect, that one. No mark on it. That's fine. So here's another copy of Pilgrim's Progress. So this, as I said, we would see a few doubles today. I think this is probably one of the ones that's come from my collection to begin with, because he's already been cleaned and that. But that's fine. Great Expectations, number 3. Yeah, that's also fine. Thomas Nash, The Unfortunate Traveller. There we are. lovely. Nice copy. The volume 1 of the Christmas books. So these are the Christmas Carol and The Chimes. Less familiar with that one. I'm sure we've all heard the Christmas Carol. That's absolutely minters. Oh well, this was Penguin number 20, I think, in the main series. Just a main series Penguin when it was much newer, of course, back in 1935. 40 years later, they thought they could release it as an English library classic, so that's what they did. Very nice, nice copy of that one. William Cobbett, Rural Rides, number 23. Absolutely perfect, that one. Gulliver's Travels, this one, look how sun bleached it's got. And on the spine there, look at that. What a shame. Because apart from that, it looks a pretty nice copy. There's a sticker on the back there. See, I can't imagine something like that is difficult to pick up, in all honesty, you know. It's one of my favourite classics, Gulliver's Travels. But that is just, I mean, it's virtually invisible. I just don't have books in my collection that are that sort of condition, so it's going to go in my swaps box. Humphrey Clinker. What a name. Mr. Clinker. I did say there was a couple more which were low grade, and if they don't cut the mustard, they don't stay in the collection. I've got one odd B format one here. Selections from the Tatler and the Spectator. It says it's an English library. Unusual. This is the only one I've got in B format. I don't know why they did this particular one this way. Big thick book. Yeah, I wonder why the decision was made to put this in B format. What ISBN, so it's post 1970, 1982. I suppose back then B format was much more common, wasn't it? In the 80s. Right, we got the last little pile here to do. Tudor Interludes. Yeah, very interesting list though. I suppose they are quite a good companion. If you collect Penguin Classics, you know, the traditional classics that became the black classics, and you've got Penguin Illustrated Classics as well, that little series of 12, then this is the last bit of the puzzle. This is the last part of Penguin's classic list, but it's something that you could say Penguin are known for. A Penguin Classic is known worldwide, isn't it? Simple as that. Selected Writings, Thomas Carlyle. Now, because these came from Alan's collection, they will only need a very cursory brush along the top, because they were stored in not a dusty environment. They were kept in a nice environment which didn't have a lot of dust, and I suspect that the collection was quite frequently sort of dusted. As I try and do now, I try and run the hoover along the top once every like 6 months or so, just to keep, you know, pull off any cobwebs or anything like that which might have formed in the collection. But as you know, I've been cleaning for a few years now to get through the entire collection, get it in ship shape. But also, before the books have been put into storage, they've had to go through quite a rigorous process. Not all bagged or anything. That's an even bigger job, but They do need to be at least clean before I put them away long term, you know. Very, very nice. Scarlet Letter, another classic. That's another one which is, I would say, brand new, you know, absolutely brand new. And I do suspect that some of these Alan actually must have bought brand new. You know, I do suspect that. The Jacobean Tragedies. Little 15 on the inside. Okay, for number 6. Just 3 more to go. Tom Jones. Nothing to do with the famous Welsh singer. Another absolutely huge one. Number 9. That appears to have been re-glued there, you know, but their glue isn't clear like my glue. But I'll leave it there, but he's going to be on the upgrade list. 2 more. Hard Times. Another absolute classic. This one's got a couple of reading creases, but I'm going to let it go. It's a good book, and it's borderline, but it's okay. This last one, however, is not Tale of Two Cities. Look, it's just too worn. You can see he's really falling to bits, and not really a collectible copy. So there we are. So that is all the initial run done. I'm going to give them a brush off, and I've got a few to polish up. Okay, so this last bit won't take long. Just to finish up, we're going to spray some polish on these books. Just got a pile of about 10 here, which I think needed the once over. It may or may not take any off these. It's difficult to tell sometimes, but generally speaking, it does lift a bit of the grime. Generally speaking. Now I need to move the camera back slightly. There we go. I think as I was vigorously rubbing these book covers, it was banging the camera slightly, so the tripod. I have been thinking of some sort of system where I can have like an overhead one, possibly, but it's still just a thought at the moment. And now this one had all those bits on the front, didn't it? So I'm going to need to give it some special attention. Yeah, I think we've got most of them off. In fact, that's come up quite nicely. Yeah, look at that. I didn't do a bad job on that one, actually. This one wasn't so bad, but it did have a few marks. Interestingly, because these don't have a cover price, they would have had to have been priced in the shop. So that's why this book has got a sticker removal mark on it. Quite interesting. There we are. Now Moby Dick wasn't too bad. It was just spotted a couple of splashes on the side here, which look a little bit better, I suppose. So this week I'm not going to bother filming the brushing process because, as I said, these books just aren't in that ballpark. They're really, really clean. It's just a reflection of that collection, really. They were just superb. So you're honestly not missing out on anything because they didn't really need a brush off. I'm going to give them a very cursory one when I put them back into order, and that'll be it. But I hope you've enjoyed this little look through the Penguin English Library. I mean, certainly you don't often see so many in one hit, and I'll do a proper history of this series. I'll get them all into order, and I'll do a proper history of the series, including some little promo bits and pieces that I've got for it on my main channel in the next sort of few weeks before these eventually get packed away for long-term storage. So next week, don't forget, we're going to carry on with the Guild books. I'm going to start cleaning them next week, the first batch of them anyway, because it's going to be a long job, that, and I don't want to rush it. I think because they're service editions as well, they're going to take a little bit more work. If you've enjoyed this little look through today, do please give the video a thumbs up. If you've not already, do please hit the subscribe button for regular book cleaning content. Still lots to go. And I shall see you in a week's time with another video. Bye.